Welcome back to Callis Mindset. I'm your host, Kannon Callis. This podcast is all about mindset, discipline, and the systems behind building high-level businesses and high-performance careers. Today's guest is someone I'm excited to sit down with because he operates at the intersection of leadership, performance, and culture. Joining us today is Mike Damiata, the broker of Amherst Madison. Mike oversees one of the most respected brokerages in the country, and he spends his time developing agents, building culture, and helping real estate professionals grow their careers. But what makes Mike's perspective unique is his leadership style. It's heavily influenced by sports culture. He has spent years involved in basketball as both a coach and a referee, which gives him a fascinating mindset and lens on competition, accountability, and developing talent. And when you really think about it, real estate isn't very different from sports. It's performance-driven, it's competitive, and the people who succeed usually have a very specific mindset. So today we're going to talk about what separates average agents from elite ones, how talent's developed inside a brokerage, and how lessons from athletics and sports translates directly into business performance. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kannon, thanks for having me.
Well, let's go ahead and start with your role. You're my broker. I'm, an agent at Amherst Madison. I wanted to start with the role itself. Most people outside the real estate industry, they think a broker mainly signs paperwork and manages compliance. But when you're overseeing a brokerage like ours, there's obviously more happening behind the scenes. So what does your role look like day to day?
It's a great question. And I think you're right. A lot of people don't really understand what it is or what the role of the broker is, because anybody can get a broker's license. But in the state of Idaho specifically, every brokerage has what we call a designated broker. And the designated broker is basically responsible for the brokerage. So anything that agents do in the field when it comes to contracts, negotiations, any situation that they're involved in, ultimately it falls on my shoulders as a designated broker. Nick Schleckaway, our CEO, told me one time, he says, the designated broker at Amherst Madison, his number one job is to keep him out of court. So that is really our job. It's to make sure that we are doing things by the book, legally, ethically, and all of my agents, fall under my purview when it comes to that.
Yeah. And when I met the brokerage, Amherst Madison, I met a few different people, including Nick, the founder, you, the designated broker, and Derek as well, who is more of the talent, the coach, things like that. It takes a lot of time to develop that structure. And I wanted to ask, how much of your role is leading and developing agents versus handling the technical day-to-days of the paperwork and the contracts?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because one of the other roles that I have, which was actually what I was hired originally in Amherst Madison to do, was to run the training program primarily for our new agents. When I took over the designated broker role about a year ago, I did not give that training role to anybody else. So I'm actually doing those two jobs. So I would say probably a quarter of my time is the training and the rest is as the designated broker. And that depends, of course. As you know, you went through our training program. There are times during the year when we're not actually doing the classroom setting training. So obviously it's a little bit different, but all of those agents that go through the training program here at Amherst Madison, once they're done with that, I'm still working with them as agents as a designated broker role. So there's a lot of crossover in that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I know that we went through a class together last summer called Launch. Mm-hmm. And, you're doing several of these a year, bringing on and developing new talent and just making sure that they're launching properly, but also you're there to support them on the other side. I know we've had conversations after the fact, and, you're always answering your phone, emails, very good at communication. So I think that's one of the key benefits of having you in that role, is that you're just really good at it. So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think a lot of that comes from the time that you've spent around basketball, as a coach and a referee. How much has that experience prior to real estate and during real estate led the way that you lead the brokerage?
Yeah, it's funny. I think and it kind of goes hand in hand with your podcast. It is definitely a mindset. As a former, athlete who was very mediocre in my playing days, right? You have to have a mentality of where I'm not going to out talent somebody, so I'm going to outwork them, or I have to use my mind, which ultimately, led me into wanting to be a coach. And I think it's the same thing with real estate. I've been in this industry for about 33 years now, in between lending and real estate for about the last 15. But it's having a mindset of knowing when to make decisions and make the right decisions that is best for your business, right? Because if you're making bad decisions, whether it's on the court or in business, it's going to lead your deal, your transaction, your company, whatever it is, down the wrong path. So, and there's a meritocracy in this industry, right? Which definitely leads you back to sports. It's if you're not good enough. A coach that I used to coach with, I'm gonna give a little shout out to my former coach and close friend of mine. His name is Phil Salmons. He was a JV basketball coach when I was coaching varsity basketball back in California, and he always used to have a saying for our players: if you don't like it, get better. Is the saying, and it can be kind of harsh, but it's very true. And so with that mindset of wanting to win, but wanting to win by following the rules and by just outworking and being better at something than somebody else, it translates to real estate in the sense that if I have an agent come to me and say, I'm not getting any business, I'm working hard, but I can't, I can't put any deals together, I'm not getting any traction, what do I need to do? My simple answer to that question is you need to be talking to more people and they need to know what you do. And it's literally, we have two things that we like to talk about in our training program. Number one is your primary job as an agent is to lead generate, right? Prospect generation. And your second job is converting those prospects, right? Lead generation is just the will. It's just the will to get out there and generate prospects. Anybody can do it. You can do open houses, you can door knock, you can pick up the phone, you can go to networking events, whatever it is. But man, that conversion piece of it doesn't matter if you generate 1,000 prospects. If you can't convert any of them, you're never going to close a deal, right? And so that conversion is where the skill comes in. And we like to teach people the skill, and there's a lot of crossover then between sports and real estate.
Yeah, and I definitely I resonate with what you just said, and I want to revisit something you said towards the beginning of that response, and it was that real estate is a meritocracy.
Yeah.
And it's very, very clear because you have 75% of agents last year not closing a single transaction. And that means that 25% of the agents closed every transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that 25%, if we really break it down, it's probably somewhere between 3 and 5% of that 25% actually closed enough to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a life. It's there's no second, third, fourth place in real estate. And if you're not winning, you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see it in sports too. And I'm also coming from a sports background. I played from the time I was old enough to hold a ball, pretty much every sport I could. And the thing I've really taken from that is the athlete mindset, is the constant discipline and constant repetition and showing up even when you're losing and when you're benched and showing up no matter what to rise to the occasion when the occasion comes. And so the next topic I want to discuss is comparing the athletic mindset, someone who's been on organized sports or individual sports and developed their own talent, with the average agent, because it seems like something that's interesting about real estate is that it's not the most difficult industry to get into. Some people think the test is easy. Some people think it's hard. I've taken it in multiple states. It took me more than one try to get passed on each of those, no matter how long I've been in real estate. But it seems like the barrier to entry is a bit lower than, someone with a high-tech engineering degree. What is the difference between people who succeed and then those who just operate at that next level? I know in sports and athletes, they train, they practice, they compete constantly, and it's an evolution of their career. But Do you see similarities between high-performing agents and competitive athletes?
I do, and I think it comes down to something that's actually pretty simple, is not quitting. And I mean, you literally only lose in this industry when you quit. Same thing with sports, right? I mean, you can lose a game, or you could, uh, be eliminated from a tournament or whatever, but there's always tomorrow. You can always get into the gym and work harder. You can always get out onto the court and put up more shots. You can always do those things. It's the same thing with real estate. You can always learn to be a better negotiator. You can always grow in this industry, and part of that is staying ahead of the game and know what's coming. I like to tell agents now, you better figure out how to incorporate AI into your business, because AI is going to be a huge part of our industry. And it's the same thing with sports, right? Knowing what's coming, scouting teams that you're going to be playing, or whatever the case may be. It's the same thing with business. And I think the most successful people in our industry know that when they come in, they're coming from all different backgrounds, all different experience levels. Some have more knowledge in real estate than others. Some come in and they're completely green. Some have been in business before. So knowing that you don't know everything and you just have to put in the work to get better is, I think, where a lot of people fail, because it's not always pretty, right? We have something in the launch training program that we call the daily essentials, right? And the daily essentials are kind of boring, right? But I think of them, and I think of it as kind of like the skills an athlete has to do, the fundamentals every day. They just have to do the basics. And those 7 daily essentials are things that you need to do every single day, no matter what, to get yourself prepared to go out and take care of your business. And the first 3 is your mind, body, and soul, right? Getting your mind right, getting your body right, and getting just your core, your inner peace at a point where you can go out and talk to people and negotiate transactions and generate prospects. Because in real estate, your customers or your prospects, or even your clients, if you've gotten to that level, they don't care if you're having a bad day, right? They don't care if, I mean, they may say they're concerned about you and are sorry for you, but honestly, all they care about is, are you going to be able to solve their problem and provide them some value? So it's a mindset of getting in and doing the things that you have to do. And yeah, you mentioned the barrier of entry into real estate. It's a two-sided coin. It's where it is easy to get in to this industry. And that is a great thing, because unlimited income potential, there's a million different things you can do in real estate, and you can create a multi-million or even billion-dollar business in this industry with a very, very low barrier of entry. The other side of that coin is the very low barrier of entry means there's a lot of people in this business that, just to be honest with you, should not be in it. And they flame out quickly. And that's just, again, that goes back to that meritocracy. You're not going to be in this business, and if you're not making any money, it's not a career. It's just a hobby that you're paying for. So yeah, there is a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going to mention next is, what are the mindset traits that separate people who treat this like a career versus those who treat it like a hobby?
Getting up every day, whether you want to or not. You're an independent contractor in this business more often than not, right? And so I'm not calling my agents every day saying, hey, are you coming into the office today? Are you coming to the workshop? Are you coming to class? What do I'm not doing that. You have to motivate yourself every day to get out of bed, to make the phone calls, to come to the office, to go to the classes or whatever it may be. You are on your own. So the traits that I see are the people who are disciplined enough to do what they need to do every single day. And again, comparing it to sports, it's the same thing with athletes, right? The athlete who just knows every day they're in the gym putting up shots. You think of the guys like Kobe and MJ and those guys that outwork everybody, and in real estate, some of the most successful agents maybe aren't the most talented real estate agent, right? But they will just outwork other people. One of the easiest things to do in this business that for some reason people don't do, and I do take pride in the sense that I've always been good at this, and I've had people tell me this, is that just answer your phone, right? It's really easy. Just pick up the phone, no matter who's calling. And I've had people tell me that before. Hey, I love calling you or working with you because you're responsive. And as a broker, honestly, I think that's the number one responsibility I have to my agents, is to just be available. So those people that are willing to put in the work every day, with a mindset of I'm not going to lose, and every loss or every deal that they lose out on, is just a step to getting better and a step to the next transaction.
Yeah. So when you're in the process of identifying future agent talent as a broker, and you're having meetings, you're going to events, you're going to the school, wherever it may be, when you're meeting people, you're looking for, one, the mindset that they have of perseverance, discipline, like a winner's mindset. And that's more important than, maybe they're a brand new licensee. Maybe that's more important than someone who's been doing this for 2 to 3 years, who you talk with, and immediately you get a signal that maybe they don't have that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're just here because they, out of obligation, or
Mm-hmm.
they're not seeing it as an opportunity. They're seeing it as something they're required to do, and they have to show up. And um, do you ask specific targeted questions, or do you try to put some hooks and lines out there when you're meeting these people to identify what their mindset is like?
Yeah, it's funny. It's an interesting question, because I've learned over the years, that it's really hard sometimes to determine whether somebody is going to be successful or not in this business. And I have been wrong many, many times, where I prejudged somebody and said, this person is not going to be successful. And then they ended up being great, and vice versa. I've thought somebody would come in and I'd talk to them and I would be, boy, this person's going to just be a rock star. And then they don't get off the ground, and they end up, getting out of the business or whatever it is. So I try, the first thing I do when I'm meeting with agents, whether they're new or experienced, coming over from potentially from another brokerage, is I try to not ask a lot of questions, and I try to get them to ask me questions. It's like, because honestly, it's not, I could tell you everything that's great about Amherst Madison and the training program and our agents and the success and the, $1 billion a year that our brokerage does, and the beautiful building and all this stuff. But none of that matters if I don't answer the right questions, that the agent really wants to know. So I try to do it kind of differently. I want the agent to ask me questions. So when I get somebody who's asking me questions, I can kind of tell from what they're asking me, if I think they have the mindset. Because if an agent is asking me, I want somebody to hold me accountable. What does your training program look like? What are the opportunities that I'm going to get to do open houses? Or they're asking questions that they're trying to find out what opportunities they're going to have to be successful, right? As opposed to maybe somebody who's saying, do you provide leads? Do you, or they go right to splits or fees, or all of these different things, which are very important. And I'm not discounting those questions, but you can tell as you're going through a conversation with somebody where most of the questions, focus on, as to what their mindset is. So I try to do the opposite and let them ask me the questions and see from there. And to kind of cap this point off a little bit is, we'll give almost anybody an opportunity or a chance to be successful. And because, like I said, I've been wrong before about who's going to be successful and not. So, excuse me, as long as they are willing to put in the work, and they're saying the right things, and they want to come on board, we're going to give them a shot. Because again, this business is a meritocracy, and they're going to fail or succeed on their own, hopefully with support from us, leading them down that road of success.
Yeah. And I like that you switch the paradigm. Instead of you're more of a consultative approach. They're asking you questions. You can feel from where those are rooted,
Mm-hmm.
and then identifying, okay, based on the surface level questions they're asking, maybe you get that gut feeling, or you kind of just know, because you've done this long enough, that this person is maybe just looking for the superficial side of things.
Right.
Or they're just looking for, what can you do for me?
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking, what can they do for themselves, or what potential can you help develop? And that's actually the next topic. I want to discuss a little bit more about developing talent like a coach, which we've discussed a couple times. But when someone shows potential, you meet them in person, the next step is to, let them know where you're coming from and what we do. But also, once they're interested, you will need to start developing them. And I've had tons of coaches in sports, from baseball, football, track, cross country, you name it. They have structured trainings,
Mhm.
and they have specific things, almost like a checklist or like a goal sheet that you need to hit in order to, show up for practice, improve your batting average by this much by doing, batting cages X amount of time per week. It's really structured. And that's what's helped with, me structuring myself and creating self-discipline, is that I had that as a young age. Do you see that coaching and repetition is really similar in real estate as it is in, basketball, for example?
Yeah, there's a similarity in as an agent, and I try to instill this in them when they come on board here, is whether it's the classes that we offer or the workshops, or whether it's just your day, you need to create your own schedule and try to stick to it and follow it as much as possible. Because if you don't have a schedule or a structure in your day, then you're going to get off track and you're going to do things that don't focus on your business. The difference between, say, coaching, a basketball team and leading a real estate brokerage is those basketball players know that if they don't do what I say they have to do, then they're not going to play and they're not going to get on the court or whatever it is. The agents, it's their decision, right? If they want to be successful, they might be successful without following my steps. But what I can promise them is that if they do follow the steps, their odds of success are going to be a lot higher. So it's very difficult for people in this business to be successful if they don't have a structure and then they stick to it and follow it. And that's different for every agent, because every agent has different expectations, different goals for their business, different availability, right? You're raising families, some are working part-time jobs, all kinds of different things. So what I'm also not going to do with my agents is judge them on when they're in the office or which classes they're coming to or which ones they can't make. I'm not going to judge them because I'm not in their shoes and I don't know their situation. Now, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I might prejudge, right? Or I might judge them in my mind, but I try not to, because that's not my place. My place is to be available for them and give them the help that they need and want, but also to not do it for them, right? I think that's super important in this business. Some people come in and they just want people to do things for them, right? Write my contract, do all of these things for me. I don't want to make the calls, can't you just send me leads, whatever it is, as opposed to, here's what you need to do step by step. Are you doing it? One of the things that I tell all of my new agents is, I always tell them, and you've probably heard me say this, Kannon, is you need to do a CMA a day, right? A CMA, a comparative market analysis. You need to do one of those every single day. It's going to teach you how to run comps. It's going to teach you how to assess property values, and you'll become an expert at it. I can almost guarantee you that most of my agents do not do that. I'm just telling them what they should be doing. And that's just one small example, but it doesn't take much. But as an independent contractor, you are responsible for your daily actions. And doing the crossover again with the athletics side of it, the ones that get in the gym or get in the office and do the daily essentials and do those things on a regular basis, I have a saying, because talent is all over the map, right? But the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's just kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, that's so true. It's funny how the hardest workers always somehow become the most lucky as well.
That's right.
So let's say I'm a new agent and I'm brand new to Idaho. What would it take to help me go from being a brand new agent to someone who is consistently closing deals and building a long-term career?
So I'll give you a quick background on my situation. So I've been in this business a long time, right? I moved to Idaho 3 years ago this month, actually, February of 2023. And I've been in this industry a long time, helped run a brokerage in Northern California, did a lot of business. So even with my experience, I knew coming into a new state and a new market where I didn't know a lot of people, that it was going to take time for me to build up any consistency. And my mindset, even as an experienced agent, my plan or my thought process was it was going to take me 6 to 12 months to build up any sort of consistent activity that would ultimately then lead to transactions, right? And that's working this full time every day, doing open houses, trying to meet new people, growing my sphere in the state of Idaho, whatever it may be. And I was hoping that within that first 6 months, that maybe that hard work that I was doing would I'd fall into a few deals to help me out in the beginning. But consistency in this business and trying not, again, this is also maybe a generational thing. People want that immediate satisfaction right now, and they want deals right out of the gate. And I get it, right? You're not selling real estate to work for free, right? And until you close the deal, you're basically working for free. So, but you have to have the mindset, and this is what I try to instill into people. You have to trust the process, trust the system that we're telling you to implement, that it's a proven system that many agents have followed and become successful. And if you do that and you trust the process, that it will pay off. And if you work hard and you do multiple open houses and you get on the phone and you start talking to people, hopefully you can get some transactions going early, but it takes time to build up consistency. We like to say that whatever is happening in your business right now, go back 6 months, and what you were doing 6 months ago immediately translates into what your business is right now. This isn't like selling cars at a car dealer where somebody comes in and, they're trying to decide what kind of car they should buy, and they walk out at the end of the day with a vehicle. This is real estate. Not everybody's ready to buy or sell today, right? So by generating prospects, what we're trying to do is find out what people's timelines are and engage with them, build trust, build rapport, so that when they are ready to pull the trigger, that we are the name that they think of because we've already built up that trust with them, and they're going to give us a call. So that's kind of what I tell new agents is trust the process, do the work every day, and it will pay off if you continue to do it.
So true. Yeah. And I think most agents, especially today, they're a little bit short-sighted with what it's actually going to take to lift this career off the ground without having the income that they're probably maybe used to in a salaried role, or even a different sales commission role where you can close a deal the same day.
Mm-hmm.
In my background, I started in real estate. I got recruited into tech sales, and I did that for about 10 years while still doing a little bit of real estate on the side. And the tech sales is what I learned two things from that. One is that you can have a client by volume and transaction volume. Enough clients add up to large clients. And I learned that in my first role, where my ticket price was like $49 a month. So you're closing a ton of deals in order just to survive. But you could close 5, 6, 10 deals in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went into healthcare tech sales and compliance software. And that was a completely different paradigm. It could take 2 to 3 years to win a deal with these, New York Presbyterian Hospital, the largest in the country, or Miami, or, ER, San Francisco. There's just different, when there's more red tape and more bureaucracy and longer sales cycles, it creates patience, because I was used to closing deals all day long, just like back to back to back. Okay, cool. I just closed 10 deals today. Where's the next one coming from? It might be coming from my next call. But then when it came to healthcare and compliance and the regulatory side, these take 9 months minimum. Like sometimes we get lucky and do it in 6 months.
Uh-huh.
And we'd have to go present to a board of directors. We'd have to get approvals from sometimes even the city and the state and the county. I mean, it just depends if it was a public entity. But I think that's what really saved me when it comes to sales, because every job I've had outside of that one was very quick, almost instant gratification. I could have a phone call that's worth almost $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens in real estate too. But after you've been doing it for long enough to build the trust, to build a rapport with the community, to have the experience and the track record. And I've been working on real estate for about a little over 6, coming up on 9 months. And I do have some contracts that are in place right now. I've got a few transactions I'm working, but it didn't happen until this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm working for free all summer, all fall, all winter. And then boom, suddenly it starts to really take off. And it's kind of like a hockey stick growth.
Yeah.
It's really slow at first. but it is a little bit, like you're getting somewhere, you're making some progress. But then you've been in it long enough that people start to realize who you are. They're getting dripped or nurtured from your campaigns. They're getting calls, texts, newsletters, whatever it may be, postcards, or they know someone who mentions your name. And then 6 months later, everything starts to come in, and it goes like trajectory goes straight up because you've just been doing the right things. And so I used to get a little discouraged. And when I first started real estate, I was really young. I was like 22, 23 when I got licensed. And I didn't see the level of success right off the bat after my first year that I had expected. Still made about 30K. I survived. And
Mhm.
I think most agents still don't do that. So first year, 22, 23 years old, still made 30K, still got into commercial and had some good experience to learn. But it's really taken me over 10 years of knowing about real estate, working with investors in real estate software, working with, hands-on properties. And now I'm here in a different state that I have taken a few years to build my network, but now the progress is starting to compound, and the snowball has left, it's starting to go downhill now. And so I think with time, as long as you don't give up, you could be 3 feet from gold.
Mhm.
That's actually, there's an article in a book that's written about that, and it's
Yep.
talking about most entrepreneurs, and it could be agents too. They work, they work, they work, they work, and then they give up when they're potentially one day, 1 week, 1 hour from that breakthrough that they needed to then justify all of the work that they've been doing for free.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that agents that I've seen, and that I've even, when I went into software sales, it was because I didn't make a killing and I thought it was easy. I saw people making millions of dollars in Dallas and they were in their 20s. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? I just need to quit and go straight into real estate. But it was because they stood on the shoulders of a giant. They
Mhm.
had a parent or a family member who had done this for 10, 15, 20 years beforehand, and they were injected into a succeeding equation.
Mhm.
And so they had a kind of a winning formula. But what do you think that are some of the biggest mistakes agents make in, when they're first getting started, other than just giving up early?
Yeah, being afraid to fail, right? Being afraid to not get out there and put yourself in a position to where you can find business, but you're afraid that you're going to say something silly, or you're going to look stupid, or you're not going to have an answer, right? I like to tell people that we're not doing brain surgery. If you say something stupid, nobody's going to die, right? It's okay. So a lot of new agents are literally just afraid to get out there. They want to make sure they understand the contract completely before they present, to a client and try to get them to sign an RE14 and become a client, right? Or they're afraid to host an open house because they don't know anything about this business. They're brand new, and they're afraid that the people coming in the door are going to know more than them, and they're going to look silly, right? So being afraid to get out and talk to people, or being afraid to put yourself in situations, is, I think, the number one reasons a lot of agents fail. You just have to put yourself out there. And the more you put yourself out there and put yourself in situations to where you are going to potentially find opportunity, that's a big piece of it, right? It's a mindset shift to looking for opportunity in all situations, and not being afraid to say, when you hear somebody talking about real estate or talk about anything, it doesn't even have to be real estate. It could be, hey, my landscaper is doing a terrible job. I'm looking for a new landscaper. Oh, hey, I've got a great list of vendors. I can send you 2 or 3 referrals for some people that you should talk to about your landscaping, right? You just provided some value to somebody, and we call it proof over promise. You're providing value to people. Ultimately, that's going to come back to you. So don't get out there and be, one of the things I've heard people joke about in the past, it sounds kind of corny, but don't be a secret agent, right? You're a real estate agent. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of your industry. Be proud of your business, and get out there and tell people about it. And don't be afraid to just put that out there and talk to people.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Personally, I have always tried my best to put myself in positions where I'm not necessarily comfortable. And it helped me develop confidence that even if I'm in a situation where I'm not necessarily comfortable or the most knowledgeable or educated about what it is, I've trained myself to ask questions and double down on those questions rather than pretending like I'm the expert when I know I'm not.
Mm.
And not
Yeah,
to over speak, like don't say something that if you're not 100% confident, but just use the control in your mind of your language to ask relevant things and to keep the conversation on things you do know. And then if you don't know it, go find out.
that's right.
Like go figure out the next time that conversation comes up, you now know.
That's right.
And maybe that's just something that I've done personally, but I know that if a lot of people took that, they wouldn't overspeak and then shoot themselves in the foot. They wouldn't sound silly about a detail in the construction side of things that they didn't really know what they were talking about, but the prospects have gone online and they've already read about it. And I think a lot of that comes from the mindset too. But at Amherst Madison, we have a culture it really stood out to me. And going into the training programs, meeting the people who create, you and the others who created this brokerage and are part of it, it's made me realize that sports and the competitive environment that I'm in today, they cross over a lot, which is why I'm referencing sports and culture so much. And when it comes to teams winning, a lot of that comes from the locker room effect.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've probably heard of that before, but it essentially
Yeah.
just means the internal culture of that organization determines, if they're going to win based on collective synergistic mindset and how they treat each other and themselves. And a strong culture will create accountability, collaboration, and high standards. A lot of brokerages I've even interviewed with from Texas to Colorado to here, they talk about culture, but then you look into it and it doesn't really seem like they're meaning what they're saying. How would you define the culture at our brokerage, Amherst Madison? Because it's really stood out to me. You know, it's something I want you to expand on, and the importance of the environment, but also what kind of culture you as a leadership council have created here.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons, one of the things that really drew me to this brokerage when I got the opportunity to meet Nick and talk to him about what he was looking to fill, the role that I took 2.5 years ago. This industry is very competitive, and agents are very competitive, and a lot of times they come from a mindset of scarcity as opposed to abundance. Right? We talk about that a lot here. We try to go from a place of abundance and not scarcity. And what that means is that, culture is a funny word, and everybody says, oh, well, our culture is this, or our culture is that. I think what ours boils down to, and I've said it before, and I know I've heard Nick say it before, is it's really collaboration. Our agents, I've been around a lot of real estate people, and I have never been in an environment where more top producers, and I'm talking about agents that are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year selling real estate, are more willing and open and available to help brand new agents or anybody for that matter. But you can go knock on the door of the top producers here in this building and say, hey, can I sit down and pick your brain for a little bit? Or you got any open houses that I could sit for you? Or could I take you to coffee, or whatever it is? They are going to be willing to help you. And when people have success under this roof here in this building, everybody's excited for them. And we try to celebrate our agents in that way, and it comes from the top. It comes from Nick's background, of course, with his sports background, playing football at Boise State, and Matt Boucher, who's the #1 agent in the state of Idaho. Definitely, has a sports background, playing at Boise State and playing professionally in Europe. And it's just that mindset of we are a team, even though you're individual agents and your success is dependent upon what you buy in, what you close with transactions. We are still a team, and we like to support each other and help each other. I get a lot of agents that will come into the brokerage and they'll ask me about teams. What does it take to join a team? Or do you guys have teams? I really think I want to be on a team. And I like to tell them, think of the brokerage itself as your team. I talked to an agent the other day, a new agent, and was very focused on teams. And I says, why do you want to be on a team? Well, because the culture, there's going to be people that are going to hold me accountable and people that I can talk to. And we're going to have meetings together every week. And they've got, one-on-one training, and I can do their open houses. It says you can get everything that you're wanting from a team by being a solo agent with our brokerage, and they're not going to take half your commission, right? So it's just, you talk about that locker room effect, which is so important, because also the other side of that coin is that one bad apple or one bad person, one bad player, one bad agent, or whatever it is, can really put a bad taste into that environment. And it can create problems with the entire team, right? I coached teams where you would have one or two guys, and they were very talented teams, but you could have one or two guys that weren't just happy, and they would poison other players, right? And it translated to very talented group of individuals who didn't have success that they should have had, because not everybody was on the same page. And then just the opposite, you have some of the maybe not as talented group, but everybody's on the same page and everybody knows their role and they're working together and they have high success. It's the same thing in this industry, right? Know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And if you're great in front of people and you can network and you can have great conversations and build rapport, but you're not good at paperwork, hire a transaction coordinator to do all your paperwork, right? Yeah, me too. So, I mean, the culture of collaboration and support to me is number one. But at the same time, we're not going to do it for you. The agent still has to go out and do the work, and we're there to support and guide them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I've, in my career, I've had the opportunity to run sales teams, mainly in technology, software sales. I'm looking in the future to eventually use those skill sets that I've created to come into real estate too, for the similar purposes. But I've had situations where I've had people that should have been let go months prior. And, at this time I was a director of sales or inside sales manager. I wasn't the VP of sales yet. So I didn't have that decision-making power, but I saw it coming, because, if you're intuitive at all and you're a people person, you communicate, you're a leader, a lot of times you can pick up on some of who those bad apples are going to be, or who those bad actors are going to be and what it's going to become of it. I had people that I wish I could have gotten approval to let go of months prior that ended up leaving with 2 or 3 of my team members, and they went to our competitor. And so I 100% agree with, you can have 1 or 2 people ruin the entire thing for everyone, or you can have 1 or 2 people bring everyone up. And it's all focused around mindset too. It's, what is your approach? What is your intention? What are you here for? And are you disciplined enough to do the things you need to do to handle that responsibility? And that kind of leads me to our next point of, handling pressure, making tough calls. And from sports, there's buzzer beater shots, there's, do you pass it or you shoot it? It ends the game. You might win or you might lose. But when you're a referee, you have to make decisions quickly while everyone else is watching. Maybe not everyone agrees with the call. It requires a lot of confidence and composure under pressure. I want to discuss what it looks like to have that level of confidence and composure under pressure in real estate, because a lot of times things can get really intense really quickly. Like you mentioned, Nick said, your job is to keep us out of court, to keep us from getting sued.
Yeah.
Have you seen, a lot of different conflicts in real estate too? And how do you handle those high pressure situations?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's very important anytime there's a situation that is stressful or there's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the line for a decision, for a party, for a transaction, whatever it is to try to take, first of all, as an agent, and you're dealing with people who are doing a transaction, it's very emotional for them. There's a lot of money involved. So you as an agent, you need to be that intermediary, and you need to try to take the emotion out of it as much as possible, right? You need to work with the facts. And you had mentioned officiating, which, I coached for so many years, and I've been officiating high school basketball now a lot for the last 3 years. I did about 60 or 70 high school games during the season. And I think it's funny. I think as an official, it's very similar to being an agent in the middle of a transaction, because no matter what call I make on the basketball court, half the people are going to be pissed at me, the other half are going to be happy, right? It's kind of the same thing in a transaction, right? One side's going to be happy, the other side's going to be mad. And I try to really understand where both sides are coming from, right? And in real estate, you have to just stick to the facts. One of the things we always say in a transaction, if you have a situation, very high stress, whatever it is, it's like, all right, what does the contract say? That's the bottom line. We always have to go back to what does the contract say, which is why I'm so I really am intent and focused on letting our agents know when you are writing a contract or you're doing a counter offer or you're filling out an RE10 for repairs or whatever it is, be as detailed and as specific as possible. You know, when I've got a coach hollering at me on the sideline from a call that I made, I try to keep the tone down, the level down, not be confrontational, and you try to answer their questions based on what the rule book says, right? Coach, he didn't have legal guardian position. Not, he just knocked him off. He knocked him on his butt. You have to speak the language that is legal so that they understand and try to take the emotion out of it. Same thing with real estate, right? What does the contract say? This is what the contract says. How do we interpret that then into the situation? So it gets pretty can get pretty difficult sometimes, and a lot of money is moved around, and people get really emotional, and I get it. I've been there, but bottom line is, you know, you have to make the right decision based on the legal aspects of the situation, and what you don't want to do is to beat around the bush and drag things out. If you know what needs to be done, get it done. You know, the old saying, rip the Band-Aid off, right? Just get it over with. Usually what will happen is the pain will not be as bad as you expected, right? If you have something negative to tell a client, you know, whatever that may be, don't wait. You know, don't try to put it off onto somebody else. Don't wait till next week. Just get it over with and put it out there. And usually there's going to be a solution. You'd be surprised at how many times I get a call from an agent and an experienced agent. Okay. They call me, they have a situation and they're a little stressed out and they don't know what to do. It's very rare that they call me and I give them the answer. Usually we talk through the scenario. I'm really calm about it and say, okay, well, you know, this is what you're telling me. What about this? What about that? And usually they end up coming to the answer themselves. They just needed somebody to talk things through with. And one of the things that I will do is a lot of times when I'm having a conversation with an agent is I will tell them, all right, I'm thinking out loud here, and I'll just start brainstorming options or different things. And a lot of times something will just click and we'll both kind of look at each other and go, okay, I never thought of that. That's the solution. So anytime you have hard decisions to make, it's very important to, first of all, know that you don't know everything. I've been in this industry for 33 years. I still learn things every single day. And if somebody comes to me with a question or a situation or a problem, sometimes I'll go, you know what? I don't know. I'm not going to give an answer or make something up. I'm going to say, that's a great question. I had something recently, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember saying, that's the first time I've ever had a situation like that come up. And I've been doing this a long time. So let's figure out how to solve that problem. And, you know, not everybody's happy with the outcomes at the end of the day, but that's kind of the mentality. So be as calm as you can, try to take the emotions out of it, look at the contracts, make the right decision, the ethical decision. And sometimes when you make those decisions, it's not always in the best interest for you or your agent or your brokerage, but it's the right decision. And I think that's almost more important than anything else.
Yeah. That was a great answer for how to handle conflict management, you know, in a transaction, for example, and then just knowing to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, it will, doing the right thing more often than not will create a ripple effect through. Some people believe in karma. Some people believe in you reap what you sow. Some people believe that if you do good things and put positive energy out there, it's going to come back. And I'm a big believer of that, is if you're just becoming the person that you need to be to do the right thing in every instance with ethics and integrity, that will that will bounce back, somewhere off the universe, and it's come back and bless you.
Yeah.
And I want to look at the future of high performance agents, looking forward just a little bit. Real estate industry is consistently evolving with technology, new marketing tools, new business models, and AI entering the space.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, people, they want to work with people they like and trust. And so no matter what happens on the technology side or on the, the laws, if anything changes, it's really people working with other people. And looking ahead a couple years, maybe 5 or 10 years, what do you think will separate those agents that thrive from the ones that are struggling to keep up?
Yeah, it's, there's always, and it's like this in a lot of industries, right? As technology advances and everything, oh boy, they're going to eliminate those jobs, going to eliminate that job. The most recent thing we had when we had the NAR, commission settlement thing that happened, well, real estate agents aren't going to be needed anymore. Buyers agents aren't going to get paid commissions. And, honestly, not much has changed from pre-settlement to post-settlement, but that's a whole nother story. But going forward, you hit it on the head, to be honest with you. And this is still a person-to-person, a face-to-face business, right? And no AI bot is going to be able to negotiate, with another AI bot for two people who are emotional human beings, right? You need to be able to communicate with people on a human level in this business. Technology and AI and everything else that we use is amazing. But what I try to get people to do is don't use it as a crutch. Use it to help you with your scheduling, to help save you time, to help schedule social media posts or send out emails or whatever it is. But nothing is ever going to replace the face-to-face in this business. There's a stat, a NAR statistic, and this is probably a few years old, but I'm going to assume it's probably pretty similar. People who do for sale by owners, right? People say, I'm going to sell the house myself. The last time I saw the statistic, it was like 85-90% of for sale by owners end up listing with an agent, right? Why is that? Well, because it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be, right? And we don't need to get into all the reasons why that is. That's a whole nother conversation. But real estate agents and good real estate agents are always going to be valuable. They're always going to save people money. They're always going to be able to market properties and negotiate better deals. And all of that comes down to the face-to-face. So even with everything that we're doing moving forward, it's the agents that use technology in the right way, but don't lose the face-to-face piece of it where people trust them. I need to look somebody in the eye to trust them. It's not being on the phone. It's not even really being on a Zoom meeting or something like that. It's face-to-face. I trust you. I know you're going to do what's best for me. And so I think it's the people, again, like I said, using technology to make their lives easier in this business, but not losing the face-to-face personal touch.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And earlier in this conversation, we briefly mentioned Matt Bauscher, who is the top performing agent, not just at our brokerage, but not just in the state of Idaho, but nationwide. He's on that list of top performers. I know he's in the top 100, but to see someone in a state like Idaho, which is tiny compared to Texas, for example, or Florida, California, some of these really large population states, to see him succeeding in this way in such a small populated state. And he came into our launch class and he spoke to us last summer. And I could just tell immediately from this first few sentences he said, he's got a champion mindset. And he was a champion in basketball. He was a professional player in Europe. He's got the story that where he learned the discipline from, and he just applied that into a new vehicle of real estate. And he told us that it is a people business. He said his number one way of getting new business and new clients is word of mouth referrals. Word of mouth referrals. It's not spending $1 million on ads. It's not hiring a sales team of 40, 50 people to go out and knock doors. It was just doing your job to the best of your ability in a professional capacity and then asking for business.
Right.
Hey, if I did a great job with you, will you recommend someone that you know, like, and trust to me?
Yeah.
And he came in and he spoke with us about some of the non-negotiables he has in his life. And some of those surprised me. Like, I think there was I don't know if he said this or if it was a rumor. If someone on his real estate team misses an event of their child, like a dance recital or a baseball, basketball game, they're off the team.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if that's true?
I don't know if yet. I know he has said that. He basically, I know what he has said, and I've heard him say it, was that every one of his agents, that is their number one focus. Their families, their kids' sporting events, their recitals, whatever it is, they do not miss those. Whether he would kick them off of the team or not, I don't know. But I'm not gonna kind of go that route. But yes, that is one of his number one things. He is very much a family man. Right. The biggest thing with Matt, what I've seen from Matt, is there are literally no excuses. He does not make excuses for anything. If somebody says, well, what about this scenario? Or I don't know a lot of people, or this is my struggle, or this is the negative, thing that I have that's going to hold me back. He's got an answer for it every single time. Right. Yeah. No excuses. I mean, you're talking about a kid from Caldwell, Idaho, who had to walk on to Boise State, grind his way into making the team, to being a team captain, and ends up playing professional basketball for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years in Europe. This little, shooting guard from Caldwell, Idaho, he did that because he wasn't going to take no for an answer. And he does his business the same way. Right. And he is a machine. His team is a machine, but it's because people trust him and they will follow him anywhere. And just having him in this building and the willingness that he has to come into a launch class, right, full of new agents, where I say, Matt, I would like 30 minutes of your time to come talk to my class, and then sit in that class for an hour and a half and answer questions. That's not normal for people in his position. And again, that just comes from the top. And so hopefully that rubs off onto our agents, and they see, okay, well, maybe he had this or maybe he had that. But what I can tell you is that nobody's going to work harder than that guy, and there's no excuses. And so when agents make excuses, that's all they are. It's just like athletes. You make excuses, nobody cares. Nobody cares. There's a saying too that says, it was a college football coach I saw doing a talk to his team. And he was basically saying, winning does not care, right? Winning doesn't care if you had a bad day. Winning doesn't care if you sprained your ankle. Winning doesn't care if your girlfriend's mad at you. Winning doesn't care. If you want to win, you have to ignore everything else, no excuses, and make it happen. And whether that's in sports or in sales or in real estate or any other type of business, you just got to say, I am going to win today. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call people. Every no from people who I call, that's just one step next. That's one step to the next yes. Right. And it's a mentality that you have to have. And yeah, whether we like it or not, people with sports backgrounds do very good in sales because of that mentality, that meritocracy mentality of, if you're not good enough, you're going to be out of business, right? We're not getting as salespeople, they don't get a paycheck unless they win, unless they close that transaction. And you have to have a different kind of mentality to be in this business. You really do. You got to have a thick skin. You got to be willing to work. You got to be willing to fail. But the highs can be very high. So hopefully the lows aren't low very often. There will be lows, but the more work you put in, the highs will win out in the long run if you do the work.
100% true. And having the right mindset, surrounding yourself with people with the right mindset. Yeah. And that's one of the other reasons I joined the brokerage. Is within the first couple conversations, I picked up on that, is that I want to surround myself with people with a mindset that's polished, competitive, very solutions and positive thinking rather than negative and excuse thinking. And that's what Amherst Madison brings. So anyone who's watching this, considering brokerages or real estate, I would say check them out. 100% worth the time I've spent, and I'm excited to continue building my businesses there. And Mike, this has been a great conversation. I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that success in real estate really does mirror success in sports. It requires discipline, consistency, accountability, willingness to continually improve. And from anyone that's listening to this podcast today that's considering building a career in real estate, there's a lot of wisdom in approaching business with an athlete's mindset. And maybe you have played sports, maybe you haven't. Either way, it doesn't matter. You just have to figure out what are the important priorities, and showing up is like half of the battle. It really is. Like answering the phone.
Yes.
That's something that I'm really good at too. And I know you are, because we've talked a lot, but I just wanted to say thank you for your time today, coming on and sharing your perspective. And to anyone listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure and you subscribe to Callis Mindset. We're on every platform. We're having more conversations like this with business leaders, people that are high performers, building their careers. And just want to say thanks again, and we'll see you next episode.